once again to Marilyn Hawes, and here we are, Monday morning when we record this programme. And even though she displayed her pearls last week, can I say that? She's gone a bit, well, I don't know. What is it? Is it silver?
It is solid silver.
Oh.
And yes, it's solid silver. And I like this as well. I haven't worn it for years. And again, I found it in my jewellery box when I was turning out. And I thought, ooh, wear that for today's show. A little different.
Well, it looks like, I don't know what it looks like.
No, it's just a modern design.
Ah, right. It's square. Yeah, everything's square. Remember when square meant something else? Millions of years ago, that you were just boring and old and middle-aged.
Yeah, but
can you be old and middle-aged? Yes, you can.
Yeah, but gay used to mean bright colours, didn't it?
Yeah, well, we'll cover that actually today shortly. But I tell you what, we've got to start with the Eurovision Song Contest that we both hate. And I've never watched it for donkey's years because it's a political instrument, always has been. Hate Britain all the way through.
Neil Pwan,
yeah, that's Gran Britannia. And there we go. So we've, I don't know, we exceeded ourselves this time, even though we didn't come last, which we usually do. I mean, it was truly appalling, wasn't it? I did watch that song.
It's just, I hate the show. I cannot bear it. I never watch it. Apart from going back years when there was Sandy Shaw and ABBA, when people actually just got up and sung. But all the razzmatazz around it now, it's like a puff's party, really, isn't it? I mean, honestly, I'm sorry. But I actually thought the Israeli girls sung well, but I think there were a lot of messages that were very political in the song. I don't know, but I just don't think when you look at what happened and all the chaos, etc., I think they were so focused on this event, they never stopped to think that people would be protesting, that people really felt so strongly about the Israel entry, and they didn't prepare. They were caught on the back foot, I think. I was really surprised to see that someone as classy as Joanna Lumley was part of that. I was shocked. I thought, she's so classy. Why would you get involved in something so trashy?
Perhaps it was the dosh.
Probably.
Yes. But we shouldn't say things like that. But we all get paid. Well, we don't get paid.
No, we don't.
That's another problem. Well, look, listen. We've got to go and concentrate on certain things that I think are a mirror of the nation and of the European nation. Where are we when we get songs gleefully supported by Ireland that are, well, they've been called satanic? The guy that's produced this had a real rant this morning about what he thought about the European Broadcasting Union. He thought it was effing jeffing not very nice. The reason he did, because it's all politics, of course.
Of course it is.
I mean, he's king of a Ouija board, this chap, which is not too healthy. Young people, do be aware of Ouija boards. Well, some people think they're satanic. Certainly that song was satanic, in my humble opinion. It wasn't the J.K. Rowling witch. It was the real witch. And it is reality. And for a song to be lauded Europe-wide as being fantastic worries me. It's even in the Antipodes, of course, because they were the only ones that gave it 12 points. Dear old Oz, how far away from the European Union can you get? But the whole thing is crazy, isn't it?
It's a political fix. It always has been. But in recent years, and I mean over the last 10 years, it has become more and more so. And more Eastern European countries have always come top. I don't know why we ever bother taking part in it. I really don't. And to get no points at all, well, frankly, I thought our entry was absolutely awful. I mean, it was just awful. But then it so often is.
Well, yes, it's political, and some people would even say spiritually bad.
Yeah.
I mean, Bambi Thug we're talking about, of course, as a non-binary. That, by the way, in the educative sense, means he can't make up his mind whatever he is. You can be fluid. You can be anything you like. whether it's Tuesday or Thursday, we've covered that before. But how this, well, he's preaching his gospel, isn't he?
Yes.
And it's very dark. Do be careful with things like that. But again, going back to the British contribution, got the same thing there. He doesn't like the British flag, apparently, and says so. Oh, how patriotic. But we're, yeah, we've discussed that last week. We won't bore the viewer, but we'll carry on, because that was the famous saying, of course, of the glorious presenter for donkey's years, who really did suss this lot out, Terry Wogan. And all he did was pour irony on it. That's put it the polite way.
He was brilliant. He was
brilliant.
Such
He got it.
He did. He had such a dry sense of humour and could get away with sarcasm. You know, he could just, everybody knew what he was really saying.
Well, there we are. We must leave it. Yes, it disturbed us.
Well,
both.
thank goodness it's over for another year.
I've got to say the setting was fantastic, though. Let's give it 12 points for that. Well done, Sweden. Yeah. I thought the setting and the lighting and the stage.
Oh yeah, no, all that stuff was excellent. Yes, that's
there you go.
Chaz and all of that. Oh, yeah, no, that was brilliant. But that's part of it, not the essence of it. Is the people that get up there and on the stage. And I just thought, oh dear, oh dear. I don't know how anyone can watch it.
No, well, there you go. We'll from the sublime to the sublimer. We'll go to the BBC. And of course, we've got the statue of Ariel that's becoming very famous now. They want to cover it up so nobody can throw paint at it and scratch it and destroy it. A lot of people want it destroying. I mean, the guy was a paedophile. That put
That's exactly right. I was approached by the media over the weekend. What did I think about it? I said, well, they had already spent, the BBC, 50 grand to actually repair it. And now they are appealing to Westminster Council for planning permission for another 5,000, I think it is, spent to protect it. Well, shall we put one up in Jimmy Savile then? I mean, why not? Why wouldn't you? You know, it's what I think is really weird, and which is what I said to the newspaper, is who wants to look at a statue of a paedophile? It doesn't matter how good he was. It doesn't matter. Look at Rolf Harris. Look how brilliant he was. Let's have a statue of him up, shall we? And for the BBC, with the history of abuse that's been hidden and covered up, that has been absolutely revealed, it just tells you what they still are. If they had any common sense, they would take the thing down and put it at the local tip. I mean, there's no awareness or empathy for people who have been abused, not related to that guy and not even touched by that person. Why would you elevate and adulate someone who is a paedophile? It's balmy. And I think whoever the PR department are, they should really get to grips with this, because it will still be damaged, because people will do it. And I don't blame them.
Well, I mean, there's a bit of a dichotomy. I mean, the guy that put the thing together, constructed this wonderful edifice. Not only was he a paedophile, he abused his own children, even.
Yes.
And even animals. I mean, the guy was completely off the rails.
Complete creep.
But somebody has said, well, hang on, didn't they tip the statue of Edward Colston in the river in Bristol? That's the slave thing, if you remember,
that's right.
Years back. Now, everybody's saying, don't, he did a lot for the town, be careful. So there's a bit of a thing here that may be similar, or is it similar? Is one crime worse than another? Should Colston's statue remain where it is? Should this statue remain where it is?
Well, this is just a very deep, dark, satanic place that this guy has moved in. I think it's gross. But particularly when it's on the property of the BBC, it says an awful lot that they have learned nothing, absolutely nothing from what's been revealed. And they're carrying on with the same arrogance that they always do. And regarding the slave trade, it was horrific, and no one is denying that. But it is part of our heritage, whether we like it or not. And who else shall we pull down and chuck in the river because we don't like it? I think sometimes there's no bad thing to have a memory of how we were back then and how life was back then. That is part of our hideous history. But I don't think it's up there with somebody who was an artist, sculptor, and paedophile. I don't think it's the same thing at all.
Right, as long as well, no, I've got an idea. I think that statue would be replaced by one of Gary Lineker when they eventually get rid of him. That would be the ultimate, wouldn't it? Right, we move to the Antarctic. It's cold down there. And something's interesting that doesn't find the headlines, of course. And the really important news never finds the headlines. And I should tell you why. Because it seemed to be not what the people, i.e. you and me, the public, want. What? It has been discovered by the Russians that there's so much oil down there in the British part, Weddell Sea, specifically. That's where Shackleton's boat went down. It's actually 10 times as much as in the North Sea, at least.
Wow.
Now, we should be rushing around and jumping up and down, but there are problems. It has been agreed that, not designated exactly, but agreed by a commission that the area, that pristine area of Antarctica, is owned by various nations. Would you believe? Britain owns a tiny slice, but actually it's a bigger slice when you look at Argentina again, that want the same piece of land, and Chile. It's back to the Argentinian war thing, isn't it? Potentially. But we own a slice of that, and that's where the oil is, our little sliver. Australia own the biggest part. I say own, it's not strictly that yet, are recognised as having a shout. Lots of countries, Norway, strangely, owns quite a lot of land down there. But the Russians, who apparently own nothing, have sent several icebreaker ships down. They own very good icebreaker ships. They need it, of course, for the north of Russia. And they've been drilling without permission. And they found all this oil. Now, the MPs know about this, and in their side meetings, not in the full meeting, have said, oh, well, that's very nice for the future. Half of them say it's okay. The other half, quite rightly, in my opinion, say, wait, what's Russia doing down there? We better put a clamp on this right now.
Quite.
Now,
But we won't.
there you go. That sums up the British Parliament.
Absolutely. It is, as you say, it's amazing. And the media actually are just as bad, because they're just, everything's about this future election, and all these other things that are covertly going on don't make the headlines. Who decides then who owns what? I mean, has there been a war declared over this area? Or
No,
it's
a special agreement, which is quite unique. They'll have a job breaking it, actually. Those countries that are registered, those that are double registered, like Argentina and Britain and Chile, will just have to fight it out, inverted commas. Let's hope it doesn't go down to the Falklands. Or perhaps we should call Maggie back and we'll win the other war. Lots going on, isn't it? Why are we so split? Are we warmongers at heart?
I don't think we are, and I think I'm not a warmonger, but I do believe in, you've got to protect your nation, you've got to protect your heritage, but I think that is half our problem. We are too soft, we are too weak. I don't think we start wars. I don't think we're that sort of nation. I think we are sort of quite pacifying. But I mean, if somebody wants a war, I think we'd probably have one. But we don't go marching in, do we, and chuck bombs at people?
No, but we've got nobody to fight a war now. Have the Gen Z is going to let us down and not turn up. They don't like war. They like the Palestinians and the Palestinians and Gaza, but they don't seem to like everything else. Now, that's an important topic that we've got to discuss, because brainwashing comes into it. And we look at various things that happen through history. And when the hearts and the minds are captured by people in the media, they can persuade, especially young people, into everything. Why are the Palestine marches still going in London and all over America? especially in London and in many other countries, because our young people get their lead from TikTok
Yes,
and various other social media platforms.
absolutely,
They
absolutely.
believe the rubbish that's on there. And when it's backed up by their teachers and their educators at university, it's a powerful and dangerous problem.
Without a doubt.
Yeah, well, I mean, we've had private talks about this and we agree 100%. You've only got to look at what happened in Germany, World War II, Hitler Youth. They were brainwashed in exactly the same way. It is potent. Our young people are our future. We've got to look after them. This is the greatest form of abuse I can think of.
Yeah, it's also, I mean, that generation though, people who at that age, I mean, they are rebellious, aren't they? I mean, and universities have always had protests in America, but social media can really whip up a storm without a doubt. I mean, I remember the London riots many years ago now with the kids, and just on social media, and if Facebook it was then, TikTok hadn't come out, suddenly there were kids coming from everywhere, chucking things through windows and burning down shops and all of that, and it's very explosive. It is destructive. It's inflammatory without a knee jerk, without a lot of consideration given to it, because young people are rebellious. They do sort of rise up, and you've only got to look at the story of Les Miserables, haven't you? What went on there? That the students of Paris were revolting against. That generation have always been like that. But I don't think it's a good thing, and it spreads like measles, doesn't it?
It does. And talking about spreading like measles, we have another news item because we've covered this several months ago. Measles, which can be very dangerous, is flying out again. And lots of other things are. TB in the last 2 or 3 years has been flying out. And now they've got, or UK have got, and other countries, I might say, another fear of what is happening with another very spreadable disease, whooping cough, which can be very alarming, especially when you see people struggling for breath. It's not a happy place to be.
It's horrible.
But we're daring enough to call out where it's coming from. And I'm sorry to say, and I was pleased to say, a nurse of the NHS actually said this. It's the immigration problem.
Yes.
Again. And yes. She was asked, well, how do you mean? Well, they don't get their injections. Yeah. A lot of them don't believe in injections. They're either frightened or it gives you some terrible satanic, exactly. Position if you dare to be pricking your body and blood can come out. And we've got to face up for the things that we have got to face up with. Diversity does not work. Letting people overrun your country in the numbers that many countries are being overrun at the moment has got to stop.
Well, they shouldn't. If people are coming in like that, they should at the border be giving them those inoculations like they did with COVID. You could not get on a plane unless you had the certification, because measles have been eradicated in this country and now it's come back again. It can only come from there. TB, so I live in the middle of Bedfordshire, right? So we got Bedford 10 miles up and Luton 10 miles down. Luton is the third top town in the country for TB. If you looked at the population and the cultures down there, you would have no problem understanding why. And cleanliness can be an issue as well. Hygiene can be an issue. But with the whooping cough, again, I do think there are a lot of people that will not give their children the MMR jab, right? And I've always inoculated my children because I had a friend whose daughter was allergic to everything and couldn't be inoculated. So I've always thought not only are you just protecting your own kids, you're protecting the children that can't have it because of various allergies. But they're now saying, and then there was a doctor on Sky News the other morning, she was really pushing that because several babies under 3 months have died from it. and she was pushing that the only way to stop this is for pregnant women to have the whooping cough jab. Now, I can't remember the jab. I remember having polio. I remember having diphtheria was another one we don't have anymore. Or now it's coming back again. And it can only be the migration. It can only be that. So I think when people are coming into the country, they should come with a health certificate saying what inoculations they've had and have to prove it. I mean, you have to do that when you go, say you go to Africa, you have to have all sorts of injections to go there. Or if you go other places in the world, you have to have your inoculations and your vaccine, and you have to prove it, or they won't let you in. Why can't we do that? It's easily remedied. I mean, in half these countries probably don't even have the vaccines anyway.
Yeah.
It's not rocket science. It's very easy to put into place.
Yeah, we are not racist, everybody. Quite
No, it's not racist. It's just some countries don't have the inoculations. They don't have the vaccine. But if you're coming into this country at the border, you should come with your certification of what you have had, if anything.
Again, it's nothing to do with colour. It's everything to do with culture.
Yes, yes. And I know in a lot of cultures don't, but then if you know you've got to have that inoculation when you get here, and if it's against your culture, then you can't come.
No, simple as that.
Because we wouldn't be allowed into different countries. You go to India, you have to have all sorts of inoculations, and rightly so.
Let's go to the Garrick Club. I'm not a member. Don't even want to go there, but lots of important people go there and are members, and they've let the women in. And they've even said, people like Stephen Fry and other luminaries, if you don't let the women in, we're going. It's dreadful in these days of everybody's inclusive. What? Well, let's have a look at this in a little more detail. Douglas Murray's done a brilliant broadcast, which can be seen on our channel as we speak from today. And a bit of a parody, really, in a strange sense, about that. Now, why do we need the ladies in? Oh, I'm going to get challenged here. I'm all in favour of women's clubs where men don't go in. Why shouldn't the men have their own clubs? And by the way, the Garrick Club, I must say, allows women in, but you've got to be invited as a guest. So it's not exclusively male in that sense. But why can't we have male-only golf clubs or whatever you want, and female-only golf clubs? Why?
I think because time has moved on, Rodney.
I don't care. I'm here to listen. Come on.
I just think it's so archaic, men's-only clubs. I really do. Grow up and stop acting like big boys. You know, I'll give you an instance, and dear old Douglas Murray raised this actually. Why don't you ladies spend really valuable time, instead of stopping us men enjoying ourselves? Why don't you go to the nearest mosque and you try and get in the no-go areas for women in the nearest mosque? Start on that society, which is awful, the way they treat women. That's where you be going. Absolutely, but I mean,
oh, listen, I've never heard this.
You start. I mean, it's a man's world. Why shouldn't women have fun at these places? It's been a man's world for too long.
Not now. It's a woman's world.
No, it's not.
The pendulum has swung.
Shouldn't be a competition. We all have strengths and weaknesses, but why can't we be involved in? You know, I just think it's so archaic.
Well, we got listen. You ladies, you talk lady talk, and you're quite entitled to say we don't want the fellas in here. We've got no problem about that. What have you got a problem for saying, oh, we've got to get into the... No, there are certain things that men talk about that is manly talk. Now, we differ, we complement each other.
Football.
Well, no, not now. The ladies are there. And I'm going to get out of this before she eats me alive and say there is a women's football team while we're on the subject, and they've allowed as their chief coach a trans,
Oh,
And our favourite lady, J.K.
I
Rowling,
know.
has actually spoke out about this. Bless her. Now, isn't it a shame that somebody of that stature, who's fairly bulletproof because of how much money she has and how much regard she has, is the only one to put her head above the parapet? Well done, JK. I wish some, but if a fella had done it, whoa, you can't say that.
I mean, I saw it on Twitter this morning, on X this morning, actually, and I put another, and tagged her in because I said, it's excellent, well done, JK. And I said, it's about time people got rid of woke and started telling the truth, because she was criticised for comparing a trans football manager with straight white men. She said, I'm not comparing it. He is a white man, no a woman.
A middle-aged white man, that makes it even worse.
It was so funny. And I thought, I love her. I think she's brilliant. And if they keep on this sort of pressure and the narrative, eventually, like Stonewall lost a thing, didn't they? They were trying to do something with the UN, and it's been a massive come down for the LGBT community. I've got no problem with gay people. Get on and live your life. And I don't believe in any form of homophobia at all. But this trans thing drives me up the wall. And it's just that narrative. We've got to get some common sense around it. That narrative has got to change. And as I say, yes, it exists. Of course it exists. But, I was coming back. And you see, cross-dressing isn't the same thing, is it? You see, I mean, cross-dressing isn't trans. Some men like to wear women's clothes.
Now, well, it's pantomime, literally, isn't it?
It is like pantomime. I mean, look at Eddie Izzard. What is he? Oh, I mean, he was on the One show the other day, and I thought that's enough to put any children off their baked beans, But I don't know what he is. I mean, is he?
Listen, the sad thing, I don't believe he knows what he is.
No, that's probably true. So is he non-binary? I don't know. But it's actually quite sad in some ways, that I was driving home from my babysitting stint the other night, and I was going around the back of Woburn Golf Course, and there was a guy there who was clearly male with short whitish greyish hair. He must have been about 6 foot, and he was very obviously a man, apart from the fact he was wearing a leopard skin dress that ended at his thigh with little puff sleeves and creamy thick tights. And he
with
had
little what sleeves?
Little puff sleeves.
Oh,
puff sleeves.
I thought you said that.
And not puff sleeves. And he drove into him because I thought, what? And he had a little backpack, like Holdall. And I thought, I bet, poor man, he was waiting in the dark there in his little lay-by for whoever it was going to meet him. And I bet in his bag, he probably had his man clothes. He probably left with his man clothes. And actually, as I drove up, I thought, wow, it's actually really quite sad. If he's hiding away. I don't know. I just find the whole thing, I just find it, I just thought, oh my goodness, I don't know.
Muslims, yes, we can all worship whatever God we want to under a free nation. There are certain things that are not adding up. And again, it's tied in with immigration. We've had some startling figures come out this week. The big inclusivity debate for years has been going on the fact that they are a net contributor to the nation. When we need nurses and doctors, we get them from abroad because we can't be bothered or affording our own nursing and training and doctoring. So it's a good thing. Let them in. The NHS would collapse. The NHS has collapsed with or without them, if you may have noticed. But now and this is an official government department, so there's no side on this at all. It is fact. Not always government departments, but on this one, yes, it is truly independent. And they've done a workforce calibration, let's call it. And they have found only 1 in 5 is working. The rest of them are gaining from the state. Oh, so it's not true, the lies we've been given. Now we castigate our young people from being work shy, 3 years of education in university, and then another couple odd years with COVID, and you don't really want to go back to work. You've had it too easy. But there we go. And, you know, Denmark, who are a very liberal nation, have said exactly the same. The immigration lie is taking over us. And who perpetuates it? The media.
Yeah.
And those on the left communist side, and I use that word, Marxism, side of the media to mislead and misguide us. Now, what do? We have the truth officially from the government. And then if we dare raise our head above the parapet, we're called phobes of various nature. Islamophobe in this case, nothing to do with it. These are just facts.
Well, I was talking to somebody at weekend, and there's a lot of research being done on bones and things that are found in digs. And there's a percentage there that shows that even back yonks ago, and I mean centuries ago, the percentage of Black people or Muslim people in this country per capita was no different than it is now. And there's a lot of research that's going on about it, that where they do these digs and they're finding the bones and they're being examined. And I found that quite interesting, that the percentage, given the per capita, the percentage was the same of how many African people were here, how many Muslim people were here, how many Asian people, Indians, whatever, were here. And she's a very intelligent woman, this lady was telling me. And I thought, wow, it was only yesterday. And I thought that actually is quite interesting.
Well, it is, but you can't tell the culture that way. And it's the modern culture.
No, it is the culture,
way we express ourselves through social media, through television and newspapers that they didn't have in those days. This is what it makes as a danger, because people with great respect who do not know what they're talking about don't do the research.
No, they don't.
And because they're a celebrity, perhaps, people think, oh, he must be right.
No, people don't. They need to. You know, how often are the newspapers wrong and people rise up and believe, if you read it in the Mail, it must be the truth. If you read it in the Guardian, it must be true. They don't see that there's a political skew on the various papers, do they? And they read it, they believe it. Instead of reading it, I read stuff and then I go, is that right? And I start Googling it and see, is it this or is it that? Because at the moment with the government thing and all the stuff coming up to the election, you read in one paper it says this, in another paper it says that, and so on. It's actually quite confusing, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, over the last 15 years, decade and a half, there's been a slogan that you should be aware of, and it's all linked to what we've been saying, and it says, diversity is our strength. And that's a mantra that's been taken on in various parts of society. And we say, oh, that sounds a nice phrase to use. But when you analyze it, it is death to our society. Diversity is not our strength. Why, indeed, should it be our strength? Now, in the Judeo-Christian culture, let's call it, the New Testament, let's stick with that, was about love and inclusion in the right sense.
Yeah, that's right.
But we strayed away from that, not from inclusion. The wrong sense is here, but the love bit, the genuine love bit, is no longer here. There are factions scratching each other's eyes out. That is what happens.
This is why we should be welcomed into men's clubs. Inclusion and equality.
I poke you in
the eye with that one. Hell hath no fury as a woman scorned. Have you learned nothing? Where's your wife? But yeah, I think, all joking apart, I think, yeah, if you take it down to its fundamental literal sense, I think it can be a real problem, But I mean, everybody, they're told about it wherever you go to all the schools now, oh, can you help us with anything on diversity and equality and inclusivity and all of this? And, why do you need a policy on it? I mean, just, it doesn't matter whether you're brown with pink spots on, does it? As long as you're respectful to each other and not warmongers and not building up hate.
Well, I'm going to build up hate now because we're going to the BBC again, back to the dear old BBC.
Oh, well, that's all right. They can cope with that.
Well, they can cope, bless them, yes. Well, I mean, apart from the statue, they are the game shows that are now getting completely DEI'd, diversity, inclusivity, etc., equality. There's a game show, actually, it's been on for a little while. I don't watch game shows. Well, the odd one's all right, I suppose. This was very ably presented, and you had all the flashing lights, etc. And the idea is that you have 10 contestants, and you see this barometer going down on the likelihood of an event happening. And dear old BBC, don't let us down. They had a cross-section of community as contestants. Out of the 10 people, there were 3 white people. Now, if it doesn't happen on a regular basis, you've only got to watch Question Time to see how
oh yes,
DEIDIE is probably better in that terms. Die. The BBC they're trying to reconstruct us.
Yeah.
This is not normal. That doesn't reflect society at all. Whether it's the advertising you see on television, which does not reflect society, because it has to be inclusive. Therefore, you've got all the nations of the world representative, all the sexual proclivity.
All the sexual stuff, that's right. The men kissing, the ladies kissing. Oh, yeah.
It's all there in its glory. Stop brainwashing us. But they do it more subtly, the dear old BBC, because having on a late evening watched that game show and thought, oh, they're up to it again. The following morning, I have to listen to the Today programme, which easily gets up my nose, but because I've got to prepare news items, I do. You've got to know what the enemy think, behave yourself. And you've got Farming Today that comes on, and sometimes I'm fortunate enough to listen to Farming Today, and it's nothing to do with farming anymore. It's all to do with net zero, keeping 10% of your field so that it grows flowers, so that we're not going to die of carbon dioxide.
Sorry, I'm sorry to interject, but there was an article written by farmers the other day. I know you can never please the farmers. The weather is always wrong, isn't it? And but they were saying that the Brexit deal has been so appalling, it's putting a real strain on farming. And can it survive?
Yes, this is because of the recalcitrance of the European Union, which they are determined to punish us. And it's not only farming, it's fishing, it's chemicals, it's Northern Ireland. It is wicked. Debate for another day. But basically, I survived the old lady, I'm going to get in trouble now, presentation of that programme. And I think of how many lady farmers there are. There are lady farmers. Good on them.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but they don't represent 100% of the farmers, which you would think they were all lady farmers. And it gets worse when you go to the business report early in the morning. This is on about 6:10 in the morning, UK time. Fortunately for us, it's an hour later, but it's still early. And it has been proven that of business leaders, at best, it's 1 in 8 are ladies, 1 in 10, some people say. Well, that's all right. Perhaps it isn't. Perhaps we should be 50-50. No, I'm not in favour of that. I'm in favour of the best woman and the best man that can do the job. Simple as that.
Absolutely.
Anyway, the facts are 1 in 8 or 1 in 10, depends on which broadcast you listen to or which newspaper you read, are women. But to know this during that 20-minute segment of the Today programme, when every single person in the finance world is represented by a woman commentator, is absolutely ridiculous.
No, I
And
know
it goes on
it's
day
skewing,
after
it's
day.
skewing, it's skewing reality. It is, but then you have to do it,
Yes,
because otherwise somebody's going to smack you on the hand and accuse you of not, standing alongside diversity and equality and all of that. It's not a true picture.
I go even worse. Kiss a girl. Well, that's all right if you're a fella, but you kiss whoever you like, whether you're male or female, but don't preach at us, BBC, again, because this is a show whereby a number of lesbians are invited onto a desert island, and the idea is to pair them off. And kissing a girl is quite normal. They're normalizing things again. Well, it might be normal for certain people, but for the vast majority of society, it isn't. And the idea is to create your best partner. And I was amused watching this show because the first thing that happened when they were interviewing one side of the partnership, oh, she said, and she was probably a she lesbian, I want somebody that is manly. I thought, a girl that's manly. Well, yeah, so they found her one. Then I thought, why don't you go for a fella if you want somebody manly?
You're very bad.
I know.
You are very bad. You know that, don't you? Going to have to send you to reform school. There is no hope. People, there is no hope.
Yes.
I have several friends who have lesbian and gay boys and lesbian daughters, and they're very, very lovely with actually very attractive partners. They're not, with women that have got short back and sides and hobnail boots with stick-on hair on their chest. They're very attractive, even feminine. You wouldn't know. There are others that aren't so. I mean, I have to say, you see others that are strutting around looking utterly horrendous, but that's always the way.
Well, yeah, I've been put in my place. We're going to talk about eggs. Yes, we're a bit of light relief. Not Easter eggs. We're going to talk about eggs. And they're very good for you.
Yeah.
Do you remember the time when you couldn't eat an egg unless it was stamped, date stamped?
Oh, that was what was the name? What was that woman called?
Curry,
Edwina Curry. That's right. Yeah.
Curried eggs. Have you had a curried egg?
No, thanks.
No, they're nice. Anyway, we straight eggs are very good for you. Now they pass through various parts that say don't have one unless it's date times. If it's come with a lion on it, remember those days. Now you can get so many eggs these days. It's phenomenal. You can get eggs that are laid in the field, and they're so much better than the ones laid inside.
Yeah, of course they are.
That's what we're told. We get a lot of stuff, hippie stuff, in Spain like that, and you get eggs that are green, believe it or not, when the hens are in the wild. And yeah, you think twice, but they're all right inside. But these are natural eggs of chickens. But you go and get the brown eggs from a supermarket, and it's got to be brown because they're better for you. No, they're not. There's no difference. But
there's no difference there's no difference. I mean, I always go for free range. I've never ever got over, as a child of 11, going to a farm that we were staying on for holiday, and the guy said, "Oh, come and sort of collect the eggs," and it was a battery, and these poor hens had red raw necks, and it just was. And I was ill. It upset me so much. I was ill for 2 days, and I only ever eat, eggs. But eggs are incredible. It's a very difficult thing to get right in cooking. It is to get the perfect boiled egg, or it is a difficult thing. And I have now discovered, I don't know if you remember the old poached egg pans when we were kids. You'd have like 6 cup things, and this rubberized thing kept bouncing out of the cup onto your toast. But if you whisk the water, if you stir the water when it's boiled like that, and then you put the egg in, you get a nicely formed poached egg.
They are good tip. And I can give you another good tip, a hint anyway, because a lot of people like scrambled eggs, and the risk with scrambled eggs is that the easily get dry. It's got to be at the right temperature. So turn the hob down or whatever you use. A lot of people are using air fried eggs. You've got to be very careful. Some of those are not very nice. That if an egg can be tasteless, put it in an air fryer, but it can be done. You can have a nice omelette in an air fryer if you do it the right way. But if you want a cunning tip for scrambled eggs, because light and fluffy is the best.
Yeah.
And there are various things you can do actually to make them nice and fluffy. And that is, one is to add mayonnaise, would you believe? The other is to add 1 or 2 extra yolks only. So use the whites for whatever you use your egg whites for. Meringues, you can use those on. Yes, quite right. But if you add some mayonnaise, you can even add garlic mayonnaise, which is really nice, as long as they don't make it too strong garlicky. Put that in the mixture and really whip it, and keep whipping it as you put it into the pan, and then never leave it whipped like mad. And just as though it's underdone, take it off the heat and let it have another 20 seconds off the heat, because that will just finish it off.
But would you, I'm not particularly good at doing scrambled eggs. Would you put with that, and you wouldn't put milk with it? No. Would you use butter? Would you use butter?
No, milk actually makes it worse. Water is preferred over milk. Because what the milk does is boil at a different temperature rate and dries the egg. It's a bit technical, but don't use milk.
But would you use butter in the pan?
Butter is fine. That's the other shortcut to making it fluffy. Or a good quality margarine that is made out of good stuff like rapeseed oil. Is your best chance on there. So no, it is an art. And the other thing we got to cover is the fact that, you're going to get bad cholesterol. There's actually a new thing, again, coming out of the States, bless them. They've come up with this idea that it's not as bad as you think. In fact, it's good. You will lower your stroke risk if you have up to 2 eggs a day by 12%. It actually does you good. And it is good for blood pressure. And it can be found, there's a study done actually in 2017 of the impact of cholesterol has been completely debunked. Don't go over the top like you can do so easily, but it's good for you. But it depends on how you construct the egg, how you make the egg. Do you use too much oil? Do you use too much heat? Lots of things. There's some fantastic egg dishes, and it really can assuage you and start your hunger and start you off. Breakfast has to have an egg in it somewhere.
I always do that, but I was told once, I don't know if it's true, that hard-boiled eggs take more energy and calorific energy to digest than the egg itself. So that's another good thing, isn't it?
Oh, there you go. There you go.
I don't know if it's true, but I was told it by a nurse. And it was when I was pregnant 40 odd years ago. And I hated the diet that I was on because, you couldn't, I was pregnant, so I had to watch the weight. And the only diet I could eat was 6 eggs a day. I'm surprised that my son didn't come out with feathers on.
Oh, what? Sticking with the pregnancy theme, the NHS has come in for some talk today about what and how they treat ladies, and it's not good.
No, it's not.
They're left in beds full of blood, urine. You tell me what else. And the attitude in many birthing places in the NHS is bad. Why?
I've no idea. I have no idea, because I would have thought it was quite a lovely thing to do. I mean, the birth trauma is, and again, I think it's a lottery. It really is a lottery of who you get. I suppose when I look back, the birth of my twins was horrific. But then, do you know what? I think giving birth anyway, it's one of the most dangerous things a child ever does, is coming out the birth canal, because you have no idea. It's a very, very dangerous, stressful time. And I knew, because the twins were my third and fourth child, I just had a feeling that one of the babies was not, the heartbeat wasn't right. I could see the machines. I said, don't fool me. I know what's going on. I've already had to. And yeah, he'd got the cord around his neck, and they were trying to get the first one out as quick as possible. And then they said to me, we can't, you just got to push as hard as you can because it's now too late for a cesarean. Oh, good grief. You're saying that when you just push one out, and they kept trying to give me this one. I thought I knew what they're doing, because they were worried that the other one was going to be born dead. But the other one, Michael, came out purple, and he had to have an adrenaline injection in his heart. And yeah, that I think birth is traumatic anyway. But what do you do if the baby's head is so big that it has torn you? I mean, that happens. It happens. And yeah, you get abrasive nurses, you get midwives that have never had a baby and tell you it's not going to hurt. Oh, please. You know, and you get obstetricians and all that are arrogant, think they're God. But I think giving birth, having that baby, is a very, very risky few hours. I really do, for mother and child. I really do. And, you know, awfully sad things happen. The baby gets born with maybe something wrong with it, or even miscarry. And I have to say, you know, I had lovely midwives on the wards that I don't remember anyone not being nasty. I don't remember. I remember the whole thing being traumatic, but because it is, you know, not walking through a field of dandelions, are you? I mean, you're pushing a human being out. I mean, what is natural about that? Why didn't God put a zip in our pelvic region so we can just hit another one? You know, why does it have to? It's like,
well, I tell you, Marilyn, it's so simple. I thought you'd have understood this. Zips are a pain. They're always catching, or you can't open them, or you can't shut them. I mean, you know, we just
there is nothing natural about childbirth, believe me. Ask your wife. She's had 6.
Well, she's had 7 actually, but there we go.
Well, there you go.
Enough. Close. And we've got to go on those delicate matters. But something to think about there. But does the word monopoly, when you have a monopoly situation in whatever industry, even the industry of the NHS, and it is a monopoly situation.
It is.
And therefore, you're not going to get the service that you get in a private clinic.
No, exactly. That's why you mean,
because they have to be nice to you, even though you might be a pain in the neck. They've still got to be nice to you. There are now in various countries, certainly in Spain and Portugal, when you get a report about your operation, you've got a big section on there. How did the patient behave? Because it was so important. So next time they can, get rid of you.
Well, you know, I think a lot of women can be forgiven for smacking the midwife in the face just before they push the baby out. They must have some wonderful stories to tell. I can remember my husband turning up when I was having the twins, and he decided I might be quite hungry and came in with a load of cheese and tomato sandwiches. And I told him he could stick that where the sun don't shine, because which time I was in 2nd stage labour.
Well, I mean, if they were British Rail, another monopoly as it was in those days.
Well, there you go. Yeah.
A day old, there's nothing like a day old's cheese and tomato sandwich from British Rail. I hope they bring back those days. We have covered some topics today, all of which will get us into trouble, but we don't mind, as long as there's a grain of truth in that, Marilyn.
Well, I think you're going to stand corrected. The ladies, I am standing up for the ladies to put the male only clubs into room 101.
Yes, I'm going to get one of those seats that makes it disappear in a southerly direction. We'll see you next week.
Bye-bye.